Today, we are going to be talking about what women do when they have no argument. So, for those of you that don't know, I moved from Chicago to England about 4 years ago now, and I started a YouTube show. And when I started this YouTube show, I really got a perspective on how the ladies are in dating. Now, you might think, Pearl, a YouTube show is not the same as getting laid. And okay, you guys are right. You guys are right. You guys are right. However, I would have to book women for shows, and we would talk about a lot of contentious topics. And this show blew up. It got 1 million subscribers in a year, another million in the second year, and it became one of the biggest YouTube shows in the country at the time. Now, it was absolutely insane because when I was going through this process, I really got an insight into the way that women react when they are angry. And I was looking at a show the other day, which was one of the first podcasts that I ever filmed. It was a trip down memory lane that got me thinking of all the women that I interviewed and the typical responses that I get from them asking questions or talking to them about anything that is contrary to feminist narrative. It got to the point where it was pretty much scripted. I could tell what they were going to say before they even said it. They would say, Pearl, 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 Pearl. You hate women. And I would just think, kind of now after talking to you guys. Sorry. You're making me. I'm kidding. Pearl, you're a misogynist. Pearl, you're a pick-me, blah, 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 blah. I stopped the show years ago, and I'm thankful for it because you can't pay me to argue with these women every night. At one point, guys, we had 5+ women in 6 days a week. And I would see how inconsiderate they were. You would book them for a night and they would cancel an hour before. I would have to book double the amount of guests, double, to know how many would show up. So if I wanted 5 women, I'd have to book 10 because worth half are going to show up, if that. And, recently I've been thinking of the typical responses that women would give to my content. Now, take into account, guys, that most people don't have valid arguments against my position. They have no arguments, so they resort to cheap tactics and insults. So let's break down the meaning of them. Now, the late and great Kevin Samuels coined the acronym SCI language, and I believe in this concept wholeheartedly because when talking about modern women, it's how they navigate serious discussions, and I will be borrowing his concept this show. So number 1 is the pick-me response. Many women, especially older women, will call any woman that isn't a diehard feminist, that doesn't hate men, and doesn't advocate for a leftist agenda a pick-me. Like I've said on my previous shows, modern women make up new words or change the definition of words to reshape reality. They call me a pick-me to shame women that try to do what's necessary to get picked by a man of value. They call me a pick-me all the time because I advocate for men and because I want to be a wife and have a family. Number 2, you just hate women. This is the easiest and lowest hanging response. It's the go-to for most women that don't have intellectual and emotional capability to argue back a point. It's purely emotional, and it's meant to trigger an emotional response. I mean, even the other day, I was in Candace Owens' chat, and she was telling me, you just hate women. All you do is hate on women. And if you're arguing with a modern woman and she says this, the discussion is over. She won't listen to you anymore. And all information that she is absorbing has stopped. She has literally brought a childlike argument tactics into an adult conversation. Most of the time, you can see this coming from a mile away. Make more than one good point in a row with a modern woman, and you can expect this response to come at some point. Shaming tactics are usually the second most common response from modern women. Pearl, you're not supposed to feel this way. You're a woman. A real woman wouldn't say the things you're saying. Shaming tactics have little to no intellectual capacity. Modern women use shaming as a tool to be able to sway your position with little to no evidence whatsoever. Remember, only women can shame. Shame is not a tactic that can be used by men in modern day because women do not listen to men and their criticisms enough to be shamed. I mean, if women listened to men's criticisms, we would all be 120 pounds. We wouldn't have 5+ tattoos and 2 different baby daddies. So the next on the agenda, we have guilt. Guilt is what a modern woman uses as an emotional manipulation tactic to make everyone but them responsible for something that is their fault. Modern women blame men for everything: the pay gap, the government, corporations, society in general. Everything is not their fault, and they will come up with all sorts of reasons why. Insults. This one is a layup. This is an easy one. Modern women will insult anyone that doesn't agree with them or their point of view, no matter how crazy it is. There is such an echo chamber with modern women that when the chamber is disrupted, many women cannot handle it, so they'll insult you. You know, I've been called every name in the book. Pearl, you're ugly. Pearl, you're too tall. Blah, 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 blah. It's to the point where I don't even hear it anymore. It's the same things. The need to be right. The need to be right refers to a psychological tendency where someone feels the strong compulsion to always be correct in their opinions or beliefs. This often stems from a fear of appearing wrong, a fragile ego, or a desire to maintain control of a situation. Female empowerment in America's universities created women that need to be right at all costs. These women need to feel like they are right more than actually being right. And many of them have some high-priced piece of paper to enforce their bad decision-making process that gets them in trouble throughout their lives. I would argue that the need to be right makes most modern women unattractive to the men that they want. No man who's had to work hard to become a success wants to deal with a woman that's never right, but feels she has to prove some point that doesn't need to be proven. Let's see most of the responses to my content and evaluate what tactic they are using. But before I start, guys, I have been demonetized on YouTube, so go to theaudacitynetwork.com. That's theaudacitynetwork.com. One yearly membership will support the show. And I also do read the chat on the website if you want to have your comment read. Bongoon the first says evening oil. That's theaudacitynetwork.com. It's the first link in the description, and we are on the Apple App Store. So wow, we got this lady right here. Can I just who's doing her? Who's doing it in the chat? Because I don't know what it is with the overweight women having the confidence to insult me the way that they do. Somebody's doing it. One of you is stepping up to the place and taking her home at 2 a.m. I don't know who it is, but it's one of you. Does she make cookies? Oh my God. Wow, you're considering it? You're considering? Oh my gosh.
Picked. Hello everyone, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel.
Now mind you, this woman made a 55-minute video about me. I guess I can't really blame her. I'm pretty cool. There's a lot to talk about, you know what I mean?
I make videos to inspire you to be the star of your own life. I want to talk about a trending topic online, and that is, why does Pearl not get picked? I have intentionally avoided talking about Pearl. If you don't know who I'm talking about Hannah Pearl Davis from Just Pearly Things. I avoided talking about her for a while because I really didn't want to give her more attention. And
you avoided talking about me. You did a 55-minute video. You could have did a 10-minute video. I mean, my whole show was an hour, and oftentimes I have multiple topics. Okay.
Don't. I'm still very conflicted about this. I've mentioned her a little bit in my video about being a recovering pick-me girl, which is my story, and kind of why pick-me's don't generally get picked. You want to check out that video for a little bit more info on that. I just kind of touched on Pearl's content a little bit.
Joel says he wouldn't do it if she was the last woman on earth. The last woman if you had no other. Neil says I'll never do it. Who's capping? Somebody's doing it. I don't know who it is. There's someone in the chat that's doing it. There's somebody that would sign up because this confidence is incredible.
In that video, but there's been a lot of talk online about Pearl being kind of this, I don't really even know what she'd call herself, but she talks a lot about relationships and things, you know, dynamics between men and women, yet she's not in a relationship, and she, I think, has never been in a relationship.
Oh my, I have a boyfriend. I mean, you know what's crazy? For like a year now, I've been dating the same guy, but it's not really been public till recently. And I've just had to deal with these fat women telling me that anyways, it's okay. It's okay.
And men are not really going after her, even though she seems to be creating her content. So
Pearl Reed. Oh, is this fat woman saying that I don't have men after me? Now look, I'm not saying I'm not saying I'm the best looking and, this is insult to insult, but you're fat. Who are you? Bon Gone says, Pearl Reed, I wonder how many men this tubster has thirsting after her jelly rolls and her.
Solely to cater to men, to bash women and cater to men. If she is supposedly giving all this information that men want to hear and saying all these things that men want to hear, why is she herself not finding a man? A lot of people have a lot of theories surrounding this. There's some very popular ones, and then there's also some obscure ones.
Oh my gosh.
I actually think there's a very specific reason for this that I want to dive into, and it's actually kind of a simple explanation, but I want to talk a little bit about.
I mean, does this woman have a boyfriend? Does she look like? Okay.
This phenomenon, this question, and kind of the idea of like why pick-me's don't get picked. First of all, if you're not familiar with what a pick-me is, I have a video going into this deeper, so you can go check out that video. But in reality, a pick-me usually is in reference to women, although I do think there is a male application to it. But in this case, I'm primarily speaking about women who essentially will do anything for male validation, do anything to get attention from men or chosen by a man or men in general.
Okay, where is this video for the women on OnlyFans? Okay, I have opinions she disagrees with. Where is this energy for the women that are literally selling their bodies to men? Why don't they get called pick-me's?
And usually will sacrifice themselves or sacrifice other women or basically do anything, even if it is out of character or even harmful to them or harmful to women in general, solely to get acceptance or validation from men or a particular man. It's not a healthy state. This is not just about wanting a relationship or wanting to be in a relationship. And I have a series of disclaimers I'm going to get into before we get into this video. But the first one I want to get into is,
can you fix it?
Is if you are desiring a relationship, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to tell anybody out there who is like, hey, I want a man, I want a relationship, I want to be in a relationship with a man.
Okay, this is what she's going to say. Want a relationship, but don't do the things it takes to get into a relationship. Don't do anything for him. But luckily, ladies, I do have a solution for us. The finishing school for modern women holds importance in today's society as it equips women with essential skills and knowledge that contribute to their personal and professional growth. It focuses on refining social etiquette, grace, and cultural refinement, enabling women to navigate various social situations with confidence and charm. A finishing school for ladies helps women develop social confidence, build valuable networks, and project timeless elegance in their personal and professional lives. Use code PEARL for 50% off at teachablemomentswithmaggie.com. That's teachablemomentswithmaggie.com. And by the way, for the two women that watch me, Maggie is the real deal. She's been on my show, and she's so awesome. So my 2 cents, I do endorse this finishing school, but I'm going to continue.
Man, and I want to be in partnership and I want to find love, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you don't want that and you're like, I'm happy being single, I'm happy not being in a relationship, that's cool too. And I'm going to talk a lot in this video kind of about the idea of like what men want and what men are looking for and like why men are attracted to certain women and why they're not. I want to make it clear that this is really for educational purposes for women to be aware. But if you're a woman who's watching this and going, I don't care what men want, fine. I am not at all saying that women need to pay attention to what men want. If you want.
Oh my God, get to it. Oh my goodness. There's no wonder that you have 37,000 subscribers. My God.
You're going to you might even attract that person that you're trying to attract by becoming something else, but it's not going to be a solid, true, deep connection and like a healthy relationship because you're just pretending to be something that you're not. I also want to say that.
Well, I get hate speech if I say, I'm going to type something in the chat on the website. I can't say it on YouTube, but chat on the website on theaudacitynetwork.com. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. Should there be, I can't read this part, a blank for blank in society? It's under Santiago because I forgot my login, but it's me.
That I do understand because Pearl is she's very cruel to women very often. She's very insulting to.
Okay, if you're fat, just say that. That's why she's mad.
women. She tends to blame women for everybody's problems. She tends to say things that are very controversial and very insulting towards women in general, or sometimes just insult a specific type of woman or insult a specific group of women or insult an individual woman. And she is very insulting, which, I really do believe is really for clicks and views, because she knows that that's going to get more attention. It's very easy when you're talking about someone who does those things to get very insulting towards them. And I understand why people tend to take that route, because when you have someone who's out there like spewing hate and saying a lot of negative things about people or a group of people, it's very easy to then jump to, I'm going to insult them. But I don't want to approach this from that place. I try to never approach my content from a place of like hate or hate matching hate, or as like a hit piece or trying to shoot anybody down or anything like that. So like, I don't want to go at this with like cheap shots against her. I want to look at this situation more as a chance.
I have been listening for 6 minutes and gotten nothing.
Is that she has very low self-esteem, and that she...
There you go, number one. You have low self-esteem. I would argue that you have low self-esteem because you won't get on the treadmill. How is the woman with a pound of makeup on, fake hair, and overweight telling me I have low self-esteem? I'm going to speed this up to 1.5 as a request of Doug on the website.
She was considered herself like the ugly friend, or the friend that didn't get much attention when she was younger, and things like that, from boys specifically. I have a great deal of empathy for women who, because this is so common, most women have some level of self-esteem issues. As a woman...
Okay. There was a clip of me years ago talking about how I wasn't the best looking friend in my friend group. How many of you were the best looking friend in your friend group? Only, a man could say that. And nobody, like everyone would say, yeah, you're not. Now, I never thought I was ugly, but isn't that the experience of most people? If you're a normal person, that somebody's going to be better looking than... It's okay. It's not the end of the world. Oh my goodness.
And who's also had very low self-esteem in her life. And I think a lot of women can relate to that. I have a great deal of empathy for her. I don't agree with what she says. I don't agree with the way that she is dealing with that situation. I don't agree with the message that she's putting out, because I do think that it is a very dangerous message of blaming women for everything and blaming women for everyone's problems and spewing a lot of things that are actually very dangerous, I think, as far as a message goes. And I'm not going to dive too much into her message because that's not really the point of this video. But I am going to approach this from a certain level of empathy. Because as much as like I would never go on Piers Morgan and say that women shouldn't vote, because I've never believed that, and I don't think that
I can't talk about that on this platform. But that sounds like a reasonable thing to say. That's all I'm going to say. That's a reasonable thing.
A good message to be putting out in the world. I know from my past, and having been a pick-me girl in my younger years, like I have definitely said some things that were more...
I bet she was thinner in her younger years. Doug's on the website says she went from sounding like a whale to sounding like a pig at 1.5 speed. Crazy Kyle, I hear fat talking. Why can't I eat more? I was just thinking, does pick me shame a woman for doing stuff that men would actually appreciate for their spouse? I just can't. Pearl, she's showing her butt crack under her chin, but saying you have low self-esteem. She's giving a 15-minute pre-ramble. I know.
Misogynistic, or held certain beliefs that were definitely more misogynistic, because I thought it would get me more male attention, or it would get me liked by more guys and things like that. So like I have a certain level of empathy for that. Now I think Pearl has taken it to the extreme. She makes a lot of money off of it. She makes a lot of money doing this stuff that's very controversial. And
I've been demonetized for a year, fatty. You made more on this video than me.
I mean, I know she was demonetized, so I don't really know what her financial situation is now, but she has made a lot of money on this. A lot more money than I've ever made on social media. So I will acknowledge that, because that tends to be what gets attention online, is the controversial stuff. So I understand, and I do...
Someone said, Dane said she had to be thinner in her younger years. No way she could have been fatter.
Have a certain level of empathy for her. I also have some theories about her family life from what I've heard about her family dynamic in her home life. I'm not going to dive into that, but I do feel, I'm just going to leave it that I do feel a certain level of empathy for her, because I think that a lot of the stuff that she's doing is actually coming from, I don't necessarily want to say a trauma response, and I know she would argue that the word trauma is overused and she would make fun of that and everything, so I'm not going to really dive into that, but I have empathy for how she ended up where she is. I don't agree with it, but I want to approach this from a place of empathy. All right, I'm going to get into the common reasons that people give for why Pearl is not in a relationship and why men are not interested in dating Pearl, even though she tends to...
Do you guys know how easy it is to get into a relationship as a woman? Even this, which one of you in the chat is doing her? They said, don't be disrespectful. That's Miss Fatty. Oh my goodness.
To gear her entire life and content solely around catering to men and being this ultimate pick-me. One of the reasons that people often give is because Pearl is too masculine and she's not going to attract a masculine man because she's not feminine enough. Now let me break down this explanation a little bit. I have a lot of videos talking about masculine and feminine energies. When I talk about masculine and feminine energies, I don't think this is actually what the people that point this out are actually saying, but masculine and feminine energies are found in everybody. Like we all contain both energies, but masculine and feminine energies, the opposite energies attract. Same energies repel. So two people in masculine energy are going to repel sexually. Two people in feminine energy are going to repel sexually, but a masculine energy and a feminine energy are going to attract sexually. That goes for men and women. You can also be in wounded or healed versions of either of these energies, and I'm not going to dive into wounding right now in this video, but a lot of other videos diving into that. Is Pearl, in her content, very masculine? Yes, she is. Most of her content is often debates and things like that. It's often a lot of conflict. That is very masculine. I'm not saying that women can't debate.
It is. Okay.
Okay, because again, this is not about gender, this is about energetics. When she is presenting her content, she tends to be in a very masculine energy. So yes, a man who is more...
Okay, now she's calling me masculine, manly. I mean, she's just gonna keep going. And again, this is the insult. This is, you say thing I don't like, therefore I will call you names instead of attacking the argument. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next one unless you guys are dying. Dane, Pearl, empathy for how she ended up where she is. World famous, physically fit, successful, well-educated, private education, has a dowry, and she has empathy for you for having a great father. Dane, you're too kind.
Masculine, who is there showing up for a debate, you're not going to have a lot of sexual chemistry with her because you're going to have two masculine energies that are going to be in a debate. Now, again, and I've mentioned this in other videos before, I don't think anybody should be living their entire life solely just to sexually attract a partner. There's times in your life, for men and women, where being in your masculine energy is just more appropriate, or being in your feminine energy is just more appropriate. I do believe that the majority of women are naturally feminine at their core and the majority of men are naturally masculine at their core, and that most women are going to operate the best in their feminine energy and when they're in their feminine energy most of the time, and most men are going to operate their best when they're in their masculine energy and primarily are most of the time. But I do believe it's good for men and women to have a healthy connection with both energies. The fact that when Pearl makes this content, she is very much embodying her masculine energy makes perfect sense. Of course she would. So when she's presenting this content, she isn't necessarily going to be sexually attracting a masculine partner, which
Pearl, this woman talking at 1.5 speed is giving us an image of what she would look like if she actually worked out at the gym. What is she?
You know, I guess if that's the reason she's making this content, then yeah, she's probably failing at her purpose. But if she's actually trying to have a debate, whether you agree with her or not, if she is showing up to debate someone, and that's the purpose of what she's doing, embodying her masculine energy, not a bad thing to do. That's an appropriate time to be using your masculine energy. The problem with the argument that that's why Pearl's not attracting a man doesn't really hold weight in that situation because, for one, that's one area of her life. So if she's embodying masculine energy in that area of her life, but in other areas of her life she's embodying her feminine energy, then she would attract a man in other areas of her life. If, you know, she's out in the world and she's connecting to her feminine energy, she would attract a masculine man. Also, there are a lot of women that embody a lot of masculine energy in most of their lives because it's very common nowadays for women to be very much in their masculine energy. A lot of them are in relationships. They're probably going to attract a man who has a deeper connection to his feminine energy. And, you know...
So again, she's saying, you can't get a guy, you're single, but she cannot attack what I am saying. Pearl, 1.5 makes her sound like she has bipolar disorder and is having a full-blown manic episode. Have mercy, please. It's up to two people to decide if there is chemistry. So what are you prattling on about? Brian, this woman is giving you free airtime on her program. I wonder who she preaches to and what her audience is. It's gotta be women. We harpoon whales over here. Get her.
I'm not going to get into that and the reverse polarity and things like that because I have other videos about that. I'm not going to dive into that here. But there are a lot of very masculine women who attract men and are in relationships. So the fact that Pearl embodies more masculine energy doesn't take her out of the dating pool. It just means that most likely if she is embodying that masculine energy more of the time, she's going to be less likely to attract a very masculine partner, a very grounded masculine partner. She's going to be more likely to attract men than embody more feminine energy, which is ironic because the manosphere, as much as they preach masculinity, tend to have a greater attachment to their feminine energy. I'm not going to talk about that in this video. I have other videos talking about that, so that's not for this video. But
yeah, so now she doesn't like the manosphere, so she's saying, well, they're girly. They have feminine energy. But again, it's just a shaming tactic. She's saying, I don't like that you're telling men that I am not wifeable. That's what she's saying. Dane said, really though, Dad, he worked hard to lead his family and it shows. She was raised by a single mother or a weak, passive father.
Pearl embodying a lot of masculine energy is not going to rule her out of the dating pool. And the thing that I find really ironic, Pearl seems to be kind of putting it out there that she'll take anyone. So it's not like she's being that particular. So it's not necessarily like she's saying she will only take the most masculine man. She seems to be giving off this energy of like, I would take anyone. It's not like a more feminine man would be someone she would write off her list. Like she's not giving off the energy that she's being that particular, which is a factor which I'll get to in a minute. I would also point out that there are other content creators who are similar to Pearl in content, and I would say also in approach and things like that. I see a lot of names thrown around of people that have similar content. I don't watch a lot of that content. The only other one that I'm really familiar with that I can think of as a comparison would be Candace Owens, who has that very, like, she's big into debates, she's very combative, they have very similar points of view, they both kind of seem to be worshiping Andrew Tate, so they have a lot of similarities in that. I think there are other commentators, but Pearl and Candace Owens are the two that I'm more familiar with. Candace Owens has a very similar, like, aggressive approach. When she's on camera and she's doing her job, she tends to embody very masculine energy. She has a husband and a family. And again, I don't really know what Candace Owens is like off camera or anything, so I don't know if, like, when she's at home with her family, if she embodies more feminine energy, and I don't really know much about her husband or anything like that. But I think it's important to point out that just because Pearl embodies a lot of masculine energy in her sort of work space doesn't necessarily rule her out from having a relationship with a man. When she's working and she's in that masculine energy, she's probably not going to attract a masculine man, but that doesn't mean that she is completely has no chances of being in a relationship with somebody. Now, there are a couple other aspects to Pearl's personality that I do think are inhibiting her from actually being in a relationship.
She goes on for 55 minutes. First person to super chat on the website, I'll stop it. First super chat on the website, I will stop it. Yeah, you can donate on the website. I will stop. $10. I'll stop her. I'll stop this video.
One thing is her hypocrisy. And again, like I said, I don't know how authentic her content actually is, whether she believes it or whether she doesn't, but she does tend to have a lot of hypocritical arguments. She tends to throw in any argument that she thinks might win a debate or be controversial or things like that. So there's an aspect of authenticity there that is very unclear. And generally speaking, as
Pearl, every time she buys something, even like a car, she has to taste it and it'll make her feel good in her belly. She'll buy it.
humans, we tend,
if she had a nickname, it would be Jowls.
to be on alert for contradictions and hypocrisy and authenticity. Even if we don't necessarily, like, even if it's not obviously in front of us, there's usually going to be a part of us that's going to feel.
Do you know what's so crazy? So men naturally can understand hierarchy. So if a guy says LeBron James isn't the greatest of all time, nobody says, hey, you can't shoot a basketball. You're terrible. But women, it's like if I say men don't like old, fat, single mothers, they say, but Pearl, you attack Pearl, attack Pearl, attack Pearl. And I'm like, what did I say that was untrue? Pearl, we know this is torturing you more than us. We can mute.
Like something.
Can you imagine if that woman smashed into the earth? We'd all be done for.
Is not right. Anyone who's operating,
get some salad in your life. You guys have a lot of heat for her.
Inauthentically or very hypocritically, for most people, there's going to be some kind of a warning sign there, even if you're not totally fully aware of what that is. Now, of course, there are things like trauma bonding and aspects like that that tend to make us drawn to people who might be inconsistent or tend to be more manipulative or things like that, which is actually more of a trauma response. So
trauma bonding, when women say stuff like that, it's how they rationalize going for alphas. It's like, why did I go for this serial killer, this drug dealer? And they call it trauma bonding, but it's just our wiring. Yeah, no one ever calls Pearl a liar. They say, no way, no one donated from 700. Well, I get it. You guys don't want to download the app and go to this off-party site, even though you should. You really should. It's $80 a year, unlimited supers, $10 a month. And all you got to do is put Pearl Read on the website. I read it. And you can download it on the App Store.
It's not like people who are inauthentic or hypocritical can't be in relationships. So I don't necessarily think that's what's keeping Pearl out of a relationship.
Pearl, she is displaying a mental illness, analyzing external environment with the goal of boosting her self-worth. I see you found your January fat calendar, girl.
I do think that that's going to keep people a bit distant from her because, and she's not alone in this, mind you. A lot of the manosphere is very hypocritical, and I actually have a lot of requests to do a video all about the hypocrisy of the manosphere. But because she's very hypocritical, and also she's not really consistent in what she even expects from women. I mean, there's kind of ties to the more like traditional Christian trad wife thing, but then she's also got arguments about women paying their own way, but then also women's work is not as important. Like, there's so many inconsistencies.
No. I want to be so clear. I say pick one. I say if you delay marriage, odds are you will not be a housewife. And you are not in a traditional marriage if you wait until 32 to have a kid. Totally fine. I don't think it's wrong to do that. As a woman, as a guy, you can go get a hot young thing. You guys have all the time. You could be a trad husband at 50 if you want. You guys have all the time in the world. On the other hand, if you want to go trad, get it done before 25. Because only like 18% of women get it. Pearl, it won't accept my card. I'll owe you, honest. Yeah, I've heard that one before.
Consistencies in her arguments.
Look it, I have a Cash App, look, or a Venmo. Let me see. Let me get my, I'll do my, is my Venmo in the chat? You know, let's put your money where your mouth is. I'll take Venmo, just underscore Pearly things. This girl could get to 30-year-old 5 with lots of work. Women have a 1 to 10, have a 1 to 10 ranges based on age category. Pearl. So how many men is she dating, married to? Any commitment from men? Perhaps she just needs help. Well, go to Maggie's finishing school, teachablemomentswithmaggie.com, and use my name Pearl for 50% off. Pearl, you should clearly ask her to be your Valentine. She's clearly infatuated with you. Pearl gifted $9.99. We got enough of this. Bongoon, for the love of, stop it for the love of Pete. Bongoon, that's $2. I said 10. I don't see the gift of, okay, wait, let's see. Nope, I don't have anything on the PayPal. We keep going. We keep the fat woman going.
People in general, even if you're agreeing with some of the stuff that she's saying, there's always going to be that thing in your brain that's going to be like, okay, something is off here. And I think that's going to be off-putting for people. Doesn't mean that people like that won't get into relationships. So I don't think that's really the key point, but that is something that's going to keep people hesitant from getting involved with somebody, especially somebody who is like sort of mentally healthy and mentally stable. The fact that she's talked about women not being able to cook, but then she's talked about not being able to cook, you know, women spending so much time focusing on their careers when she's primarily been focused on her careers. Like, she's been shaming women for all the things that...
No, 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 no. I say that's modern. Look it, modern isn't good or bad. It's not right or wrong. And by the way, I can cook. I'm a decent cook. So let's not. But two, it's not right or wrong. But pick one. And if you pick one and expect the other, that's delusion. Pearl, pay how much she wants. 8, how much she weighs. Pearl, pass me your ETC wallet number. What is an ETC? Is that like Bitcoin or something? I don't know.
That she embodies, and she's attracted.
The Venmo is just underscore Pearly things. I think I have Cash App. You guys, I get locked out of things a lot. Oh yeah, I do have Cash App. Pearly things, PEARLYTHINGS, and I'll stop her. I'll stop the fat lady.
Attracting an audience of men that actually
I
don't
need
like the
$8
things
more
that she's embodying.
raised.
And that's not to say there's a lot of men out there that don't care if a woman can cook, or that are okay with being with a career woman, may even actually want to be with a career woman. But unfortunately, like, Pearl's message and the people she's targeting are men who think that a woman that embodies the things that she embodies are not really what they want. And so her audience of men that she's catering to are not the type of men that are going to be attracted to her, and she's shaming women for doing
now she's saying, Pearl, you're manly and ugly.
Things that she's doing. That goes into the hypocrisy also, and the inauthenticity. But also, she's almost trying to win over an audience of men and be a pick-me for men that aren't going to pick her. That's not to say there aren't men out there who would pick her, but those are not the men that she is targeting. And she's also, because she's targeting the men that would hate on her, she's not surrounding herself with men that would pick her, for one, but also she's really alienating the types of men that...
Like, I'm not trying to be rude. I've gotten a marriage proposal on a first date. It's like happened to me. It's not that hard as a woman. Oh my God. Okay. I'm going to just...
That might actually be interested in a woman who is, you know, in her age range, for a woman who has a career that is very outspoken. There are women out there that embody those things that actually do find partners, but she is specifically targeting a different type of guy that's going to find the things that she embodies to be...
Okay, I get it. Insult. Can we get to
she's doing that. She's making a lot of money doing it, but those guys are not going to want to date her because they're just seeing her as like an ally.
Pearl, I feel bad for calling this woman a whale. Insulting such beautiful, majestic creatures. I'm going to expose you to BuzzFeed for torturing your male viewers. This could be classified as cruel and unusual punishment, I'm sure.
Not seeing her as a woman that they would pick because she's specifically targeting guys that don't want the things that she brings to the table. I hate that term, bring to the table, but like the things that she embodies herself. She's specifically targeting men who don't want those things. So she's saying that women should cater to men, but she's not really catering to these men. And I'm not saying she should be catering to these men. She's not. Now, that's not to say that there aren't men out there who would want the things that she embodies, but she's not targeting those men as her primary audience. Now, that doesn't mean that she can't meet a man who actually is looking for the things that she has to offer in everyday life. She's just probably not going to meet it in the workplace, because in the workplace, she's targeting an audience of men that are not looking for that. I also want to get into the root of pick-me behavior, let's be real, is usually low self-esteem. It's desperately needing validation.
I knew that was coming. Low self-esteem.
Validation from somebody. It can come across sometimes as being like an egomaniac, of being like really arrogant, but usually that is overcompensating for low self-esteem. And clearly Pearl has very low self-esteem. I'm not shaming her for that because I know what it's like to have very low self-esteem.
Obviously. The treadmill.
I
Yes.
can identify with having very low self-esteem, particularly in my younger years. Something I've worked through my whole life. I'm not shaming her for this, and I actually have a lot of empathy for her for feeling this way. I actually wish she felt better about herself, because I feel like people who feel better about themselves don't feel like they need to take down all women in order to make themselves feel better about themselves. And I don't like the way that she goes about dealing with her low self-esteem. But I do think a lot of this is low self-esteem, and it's interesting how she's kind of essentially admitted that she wouldn't expect anything from a guy, that she would be okay with a guy cheating if he, was successful enough or whatever. Like,
I want to be realistic here. This is the one I always get. If you have a guy's kids and he cheats on you, what are you going to do? Leave? Good luck and date as a single mother. I'll just get over it.